Good afternoon, everyone. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. This is from the south. We start again today in Guatemala. That's where lawmakers vote this Tuesday on stripping President Perez Molina of his immunity. Otto Perez Molina. 105 out of 158 votes are needed. Now, the embattled president keeps insisting that he is innocent of the corruption charges and has again refused to resign. He offered a press conference Monday afternoon for the first time since the allegations were made. This after asking for constitutional protection in an attempt to delay the process against him. In his speech, he criticized the prosecutor's office and the International Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala, who are both asking for his impeachment.
I'm available not only to face due process, but also to respond to them, not only head on, but with my head high, because if there's anyone that has been hurt more than anyone else, it's precisely me.
And we're going to turn live now to our correspondent in Central America, Gerardo Torres, for more on our top story out of Guatemala today. Hello there, Gerardo. So let's talk about this process in the Congress there. They need 105 votes to approve the lifting of his immunity. What are the chances? What are the chances they will reach that threshold?
Hello, Cody. Well, effectively, yesterday the Congress had to begin the discussion in which they could decide to take out the impunity of President Otto Perez Molina. In his declaration, the Guatemalan president attacked the General Prosecutor's Office and the National Anti-Impunity Commission sitting in Guatemala. He assured that they had invented some proof against him that were not true, and he said that he was part of a plan to establish the government. The Congress is there isn't any certainty if the lawmakers will be enough to take his impunity. There has been also accusations that President Otto Perez Molina has tried to make some connections or try to bribe some of the lawmakers of the Leader Party. The Leader Party has said this is not true, and also the President Otto Perez Molina has said this is not true. So in his press conference, what he said is that he is willing to accept the charges. Other thing that we have to say is that he, as the president, has the benefit of something that is called a pre-judgment, in which he would know what could be the consequences of being in the judgment, and then decide if he could resign to impunity or not. It is less probably that Congress will take impunity before the elections that are going to be held this weekend. But some people say that if the citizenship continue pressuring and the Leader Party decides not to back up President Perez Molina, there could be some changes in this count in this week, and the president would have to face trial as any other citizen.
And Gerardo, Perez Molina there, he said that he's going to stay in office despite it being what he said was a personal sacrifice. But a lot are saying, the reason he's staying there is to maintain his immunity. That brings the question, what will happen then when his term runs out, and will that immunity also run out?
The thing, Cody, is that if he doesn't resign, he still has the benefit of being part of the Central American Parliament. All the Central American presidents, immediately after they left office as president, have the charge of being part of the Central American Parliament and also have the benefit of impunity. The pressure will continue, especially now in the National Congress that has the possibility in this week or the next week after the elections to take out the immunity of the president and force him to face trial.
All right, Gerardo Torres reporting with the latest out of Guatemala. Gerardo, thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Moving on now, we turn to Colombia. That's where Colombia has failed to garner sufficient votes during a special OAS session in Washington to address the border dispute with Venezuela. Now, the final conclusion was that this is an issue that should be resolved diplomatically between the two countries. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro had ordered the closure of border crossings with Colombia on the ground that paramilitaries were operating in Venezuela, smuggling cheap food and gasoline across the border into Colombia for a very high profit. Now, Maduro said they were also involved in many other crimes. Their activity has caused shortages inside Venezuela, while Colombia has enjoyed contraband at lower prices.
In all cases, accustomed as we are to resolve our differences through diplomacy, we insist on the invitation from the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro extended to Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos for a forum for them, and it's for them alone.
And precisely, Venezuelan authorities confiscated on Monday 20 tons of sugar that were to be taken to Colombia. The officials had received reports on irregularities and inspected all the houses in the zone until they found 400 sacks with sugar which were undocumented and in unsuitable conditions. UN representatives in Colombia checked the situation at the border after its closure by the Venezuelan government. After a tour around the area, the humanitarian coordinator for the United Nations system in Colombia, Fabricio Olchild, said he could not find evidence of any violation of human rights concerning minors, as Colombian Attorney General had claimed. Now, he added that he expects dialogue and diplomacy to resolve the crisis. Meanwhile, the governor of the state of Táchira in Venezuela announced the deployment of 3,000 military personnel to assure the peace between Colombia and Venezuela not be disturbed.
We will deploy troops. As you can see, several flights with Marine Infantry Corps have come from the state of Vargas, from the state of Carabobo, from Falcón, in order to accomplish the hard task ordered by the President of Venezuela. They are more than 3,000 military personnel. By land, we are deploying different military units stationed in the area in order to help, supervise, watch, and certify that the border with our sister Colombia is not disturbed.
And we're now going to turn to our correspondent in Colombia, Natalia Margarita, for the latest on the Colombia-Venezuela situation there at the border. Natalia, Colombia couldn't get enough votes at the OAS to hold a ministerial meeting on the border issue with Venezuela. So what might be their next move there?
Yeah, in fact, Colombia just got 17 votes in favor out of the 18 that were necessary in order to convene these meetings between the chancellors of the different countries of Americas. The Chancellor of Colombia, the Foreign Minister of Colombia, María Ángela Holguín, said she was surprised by the vote of Panama. Let's remember that Panama abstained from voting in favor of this meeting. And María Ángela Holguín said that Colombia was expecting or was counting with this vote. She also said that, María Ángela Holguín said that she doesn't consider this votation a failure, and that what they are going to try to do now, the next move, is to try to bring this border crisis, to put it on the table in the UN. In that sense, she confirmed that she already gave instructions to the Colombian ambassador to the UN, Maria Emma Mejia, to try to seek for a meeting with the United Nations. Regarding the UNASUR meeting that was expected to be held this week, the Chancellor of Colombia already also confirmed that they are looking for this meeting this same week, but that they might not be willing to hold it next week. Which is difficult, as we know that the Foreign Affairs Minister of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, is currently with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in China and Vietnam. So we still need to see if finally this UNASUR meeting develops this week or not.
And Natalia, a UN mission there has said that they couldn't find any evidence of human rights violations at the border there, as we have been hearing sort of in the press, and also from Colombian sources. So has there been any reaction from the Colombian government to that announcement?
Well, basically, the Colombian government keeps on insisting that its priority right now is to give humanitarian assistance to the almost 11,000 Colombians that have been crossed the border from Venezuela to this side. The humanitarian coordinator of the United Nations here in Colombia, Fabricio Olchild, he has said that there is indeed a humanitarian crisis, not human rights violations, as you already pointed out, but that there is a humanitarian crisis. So the Colombian government is focusing all its efforts in trying to provide housing. Even the Minister of Education here is saying that she's trying to provide the schools to the children that has been crossing to this side of the border in Colombia. Something that is really interesting about this mission that you point out Corey, and what Fabricio Hochschild, the humanitarian coordinator of the UN here in Colombia, said, is that he also highlights how dangerous it could be to damage the role of Venezuela in the peace process. He himself admitted that the role of Venezuela within the Colombia's peace process is a very important one, and that regardless of this border crisis, this role of Venezuela should not be affected.
All right, Natalia Margarito reporting there from Colombia. Natalia, thank you. After visiting Vietnam, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is now in China to strengthen bilateral relations with the Asian giant there. Maduro said Venezuela has forged a true cooperation partnership with China. The Asian country is Venezuela's largest creditor. In April, Caracas secured a $5 billion loan from Beijing to support social and infrastructure projects. Over the last 8 years, China has loaned Venezuela close to $50 billion. About half has been paid back. On Thursday, Maduro will join other world leaders, including Vladimir Putin of Russia, at celebrations for the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II in Asia.
Accompany the people of China in their celebrations of the 70th anniversary of their victory. We will accompany all the government and the President Xi Jinping, who has invited us. This is an historic moment for the 70th anniversary of when this complex era began, and which in the end has seen us all emerge, among which is the great power of China. So in the next few hours, we will be signing a series of new agreements for cooperation in the industrial, energy, science, technological sectors. We come to discuss new ways to finance development that will perfect what we have already created.
After months of in-depth investigations, the Venezuelan prosecutor's office announced that it has proven the guilt of jailed opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez. Now, the officials concluded that Lopez had publicly called upon his supporters to attack a government building back in February of 2014. 6 government vehicles and a library were set on fire. The experts presented evidence of 700 messages sent by Lopez through his Twitter accounts before and after the protests. The conclusion is that he promoted violence that ultimately led to the deaths of 43 people. A verdict against Lopez could be handed down in as soon as 2 weeks. And we go to Argentina now, where the human rights organization Grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo announced that they have recovered another missing grandchild from the dictatorship of the 70s. From Buenos Aires now, our correspondent Laureano Ponce with the details on this good news story.
Argentina's Grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo held a press conference on Monday in which they confirmed that a woman has been identified as the 117th missing and restituted grandchild. Her parents were 2 left-wing activists that were victims of forced disappearance in December 1977, when her mother was 6 months pregnant. Though her name was not made public in order to fully respect her right to privacy, her grandmother, Maria Dominguez, was part of the conference.
Young people are very aware, and they will keep fighting so that we never have to go through a military dictatorship ever again, because that is the worst thing that can ever happen to a country.
The meeting also counted on the participation of lawmakers, human rights activists, and government officials who pointed out the value of the right to identity.
We have taken state terrorism to justice. We have done the impossible to set a landmark regarding impunity in Argentina, and we have managed to eradicate it. We still have to recover the identity of these grandchildren, which will also mean recovering the identity of our nation.
The grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo estimate that around 500 people were kidnapped as children or born in custody and illegally given in adoption during the last dictatorship.
It's a great joy to be able to share the news that we have found another grandchild, number 117. We keep track of them to know that we are making progress and to keep us searching with hope.
Carlota also remarked the right to identity has been recovered, counting on the support of the state and the majority of the society, which does not want to live under a terrorist state ever again. Laureano Ponce, Telesur, Buenos Aires.
Experts predict that this year the El Niño weather phenomenon is going to be pretty extraordinary. That's why Peru now has conducted a national drill in order to be prepared. Now, El Niño, a periodic warming of sea surface temperatures in the Pacific, is expected to raise temperatures, setting off a chain reaction in the agriculture, fishing, and tourism industries along the coast there. It is strengthening now and is likely to peak in 3 to 7 months' time. Ecuador, India, and Indonesia will also be affected. And overall economic growth in Peru has gone hand in hand with an increase in criminality and violence. Our correspondent Raul Mora now with more from Lima.
The growing number of crimes in Peru has sparked the creation of groups that call on citizens to take matters into their own hands in violent ways, with names such as Campaign, Grab a Thief, and Make Him Paraplegic. The organization Our City published a report showing that although homicides are relatively low, there is a high rate of petty crimes in Peru. They also argue that the solution is an efficient police force supported by intelligence units.
We have a low level of violence, but it is growing. Crime is becoming more organized every day, more violent, using more weapons now, and bolder. Therefore, we have to stop this process, because if we don't, we are going to end up in a country with much more violence and criminality.
Other analysts believe that the roots of the problem are the social inequalities resulting from a neoliberal political and economic system that was implemented in the 90s and continues up to today. Critics claim that although Peru has experienced high growth, it has only developed islands of inclusion in a sea of inequality.
This situation of inequality in which 45% of children and teenagers live in the country results in their not having opportunities, not even to study or work. It is also made worse by living in a consumerist society. Kids want to buy brand-name sneakers, cell phones, etc. And since they don't have the money, they opt for what is easier, stealing.
Inequality in the country is easy to spot in large cities of Peru, and that would explain why it is there that street criminal activity concentrates. Lima, for instance, has the second largest percentage of victims of crimes out of all capitals of Latin America. And there is only one other capital where residents report feeling more vulnerable to robberies than in Lima. Rael Mora, Telesur, Peru.
Protest action by refugees trying to enter Western Europe via Hungary's Kaleti train station in Budapest was met with a wall of police officers. The refugees chanted, "Germany, Germany," and "We want to leave," after the officers forced them to evacuate the train station. This follows more stringent action by Hungarian authorities to restrict the flow of refugees. Hungary's right-wing Prime Minister Viktor Orban has referred to the refugee crisis as a threat to European security, prosperity, and identity. And as they are currently unable to transit out of Hungary, the refugees have positioned themselves outside the Budapest train station in makeshift camps. According to Hungarian officials, the government is trying to restore order and enforce EU rules by preventing the refugees to board the trains to other neighboring countries. This as EU member countries call for the even distribution of refugees across the European Union. New developments in the investigation on the August 17th Bangkok shrine bomb attack. Thai authorities have arrested a foreigner who they say played a key role in the incident. Officials say they have biological evidence which would indicate the suspect's involvement in the shrine bombing and another smaller bombing incident on August 18th. Officials have issued more warrants for the arrest of 3 more foreign male suspects.
Chinese tourists continue
and despite
to
the deadly bomb attack, which resulted in the deaths of 20 people, Chinese worshippers continue to patronize the Bangkok shrine, where an effigy of the Hindu god Brahma, although damage still stands. Artisans have been working to repair damage caused by the bomb. Devotees of Brahma visit the shrine to invite good luck into their lives.
Tourism officials feel a drop in numbers.
To Lebanon now, where the You Stink campaign, started by environment activists and considered the country's largest protest movement, kicked their demonstrations up a notch. Now thousands hit to the streets chanting the word revolution against a government they say is incompetent and corrupt. Anti-government protesters also stormed the Environment Ministry building in the capital, Beirut, demanding the resignation of Environment Minister Mohamed Machnout. This as the country's waste crisis continues unresolved. A horrific scene after a Pakistani Taliban soldier killed about 6 people and injured 31 after he committed suicide with a bomb. The incident occurred just outside a local government office in an area bordering Afghanistan, where the military has been battling Taliban and Islamist groups. Among the dead were 4 policemen. Legends have been stirred up in Poland as the news of the discovery of an alleged Nazi train spread. Now, back in the middle of August, 2 men informed they had located a Nazi German train buried somewhere underneath the Cassis Castle in Washbridge. The Polish Ministry of Culture announced that the train is almost positively the one that went missing near the end of World War II while carrying away gems and guns ahead of advancing Soviet Red Army forces. Its founders, a Pole and a German, now claim 10% of the value of the findings. Picture this, Fred Flintstone, Mad Cow, or Gandalf wrestling in gravy. Well, you might find it crazy, but this actually happens every year. In Britain, here it is, 22 competitors, 16 men and 6 women battled for the 8th World Gravy Wrestling Championship there in Lancashire, the Lancashire region of England. Now, the aim of the contestants is to wrestle in a pool with 15 liters of gravy for 2 minutes. Wrestling talent is actually not that important, and the winner is the one who gets the best audience response. But there is a secret here. The liquid is not even gravy anymore, but it's a mix of corn flour and caramel. The meat smell there actually attracted wasps. Okay, good for them. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Today we're going to leave you with the images of a fireball festival in Nepaja, El Salvador. Now, youths distribute in 2 different teams to throw balls of fire made of rags soaked in petrol and wire. The festival started in 1922 when an eruption of the San Salvador volcano didn't damage the town, a miracle there attributed to Saint Geronimo. The balls there represent the lava.